Welcome back to Close Up. One of the other top candidates running in the Republican primary in the 1st Congressional District is Holly Novoletsky, a Seacoast businesswoman, and she joins us this morning on Close Up. Holly, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me again.
So you've been drawing a very strong contrast with Russell Prescott in this race on the issue of abortion.
Yes.
You say that his votes on the Executive Council in favor of Planned Parenthood are something that every Republican should know about, and you think that, makes you the better candidate in this race. So explain what you're talking about there.
So I think that it's honesty. And that's what I bring to this candidacy. I'm a business person. I'm going to look you in the eye and I'm going to tell you what I think. And you have a right as a voter to know where I stand. When a candidate says that they are pro-life, but then voted with Chris Pappas to fund Planned Parenthood, that's not being honest. We've had for 40, 60 years the Hyde Amendment that said no public funding for abortion. But yet money went to Planned Parenthood. And we all know money's fungible. You say it's for STD testing or maybe primary care and rural health, but you take money out of one pocket of Planned Parenthood and you put in the other one. And now Planned Parenthood has been identified as the #1 provider of trans care. And that goes back as far as I saw from 2007. They were providing hormone blockers. So we shouldn't be giving this public money.
Obviously, this is an issue that could help you in the primary. What are you going to do in the general election if you're the nominee and you're out there already as the most pro-life candidate? Most of your voters in CD1 are pro-choice.
Sure. So what we really need to do, and I think that the Democrats have been fear-mongering, we really need to educate the voter. Here in New Hampshire, nothing has changed as far as abortion. Our abortion laws, which have been voted in by state legislators, is the same law that was under Roe versus Wade. Up to 6 months, unlimited access to abortion, and after that for cause. They're telling people there's an abortion ban. There isn't. It is the exact same law that was under Roe versus Wade. And we need to let people know that there is no need to be fearful because it's a state issue. I will not support a federal ban. It's a state issue, and that's where it needs to stay.
Well, what do you think of the RNC and Trump changing the Republican Party platform? For decades, this has been a pro-life party. Now, again, this is trying to line it up with that Supreme Court decision, which left it to the people in their legislatures. But the idea that, is this no longer a moral issue, being pro-life?
I think it's a moral issue for the individual. But right now, it's a state issue for legislation. It's no longer a federal issue. It's a state issue where it should be, and that's why the Republican Party is saying, leave it at the state. That's where the Supreme Court read it, and that's where it should stay. It's a moral issue for individuals.
Obviously, the talk for most is about President Biden and his status at the top of the ticket for the Democrats. How do you feel that Congressman Pappas has handled this issue in his capacity representing CD1?
I think he is not called out. I look every morning at the news to see who are the Democrats who are calling out his mental incapacitation, or incapacitation, excuse me, his mental abilities, and he has not been identified. He has not called them out at all. He has supported him. He's supported his disastrous policies on the border. He's not done anything to stop the border. He had that, last time I was here, we talked about he had started that pragmatic group of Democrats to talk about the border issue. But yet, he voted against the SAVE Act. He voted to allow illegals to vote in our elections. So he's doing nothing. He's supporting Biden all the time, 100%, and he's hurting the voters of New Hampshire.
Do you think President Biden is fit to serve right now?
No.
So in the future, former President Trump is also at an advanced age. If you're elected, there's this big red wave. It's President Trump, it's Congresswoman Holly Novoletsky, and you start to see signs of age-related issues with former President Trump. If he's serving, are you going to call those out?
I think it is the responsibility of anyone who sees it to bring it to somebody's attention. There was a concerted effort by the Democrat elite to hide what was going on with Biden. We could see early in this presidency, even during the campaigning, there were neurological signs. But there was a concerted effort by the Democrat elite to hide it. Not only did it hurt the voters of New Hampshire because they didn't even get a choice to have a primary, but it hurt all of the United States, but it hurt the Democrats. They had a right to have a choice. They had a right to make a informed decision on who should be their candidate, and they hid that from them. So shame on the Democrat elite. And I feel badly for the Democrats because they didn't get a chance to have a real say.
Let's talk about health care. Obviously, over the last decade, this was a top issue for a lot of people. What would you like to see change in terms of federal law if you're in Congress?
Health care. We really need to look at access, cost, and staffing. Those are critical. We also need to make sure that we're not giving away health care to illegal immigrants at the risk or at the cost for caring for our veterans and our elderly, our disabled, and our homeless, and the mentally ill. We need to take care of those people, and we're spending billions of dollars on giving free health care. I saw something on LinkedIn that said under Obamacare you got fined for not having health care as an American, but yet we give free health care to illegals. We need to stop that, and we need to address our people who have paid into the system and make sure they get adequate care.
Are you calling for a full repeal of Obamacare, or are there elements that you think should stay?
I'm not calling for a full repeal of Obamacare. I'm saying what we need to do is stop paying for illegal care. Illegal should not be getting free health care at the cost of our citizens.
Diving back into some of the politics of this race, obviously for a while it was just sort of a top three, if you will, of you and Prescott and Bright. Now Joe Kelly Levasseur from Manchester is in. How does that change the dynamics of this race, especially with one candidate now in Alderman Levasseur who is so pro-Trump?
Right. I think it's good that Joe got in. He wanted to bring some energy to the campaign and to the race, and I think he's done that. So I'm excited to have him in the race, and he's a good opponent.
Obviously, there have been a few debates now. I want to ask you about something from 2 debates ago, also at NHIOP. You said something that caught a lot of people's attention. You were asked about donating to Democratic state senators on a seacoast. You were advocating for a Buy American Steel bill. You said, quote, "I did pay to play." Can you explain what you meant by that?
Sure. So, I mean, it's similar to what, was thrown at President Trump in his first election. I have been an advocate, as you know, because you've done some interviews with me, on Buy American for over 2 decades. And I have fought for the Buy American, I've fought for American manufacturing, and I have fought for the American worker. And I'll never be sorry about that. And the 2 people who took up the bill at the state here for us happened to have been Democrats, and I did give them a donation. However, during the last 5 years, I've given over $50,000 to New Hampshire Republicans. I am not ashamed. I am a strong supporter of New Hampshire Republicans, and I am a strong supporter of Buy American, because that law is so important, because there are about 500 New Hampshire families that are supported by the steel industry in New Hampshire, and we need to make sure that they don't lose their jobs to foreign competition. Unfair traded foreign competition.
With the phrase, though, pay to play, was your expectation that you were purchasing their support?
No. My expectation was that I was supporting somebody who was supporting the American worker and the Buy American.
Is that how you view that relationship, though, that it's transactional, essentially, that, the donation indicates that they are going to do what you want them to do?
Well, they're my they were my state senators at the time, and they actually were very helpful at the time. They came, they listened, they toured my plant, so they were working with me. It wasn't just at that moment, but they worked with me for a couple of years on those bills. Of course, Burt Cohen was decades ago, yeah.
Well, have you donated to other Democrats, though, as well, beyond those 2 state senators?
I have in Massachusetts on Buy American, who support our Buy American bills.
Representative Malloy in your hometown as well?
Oh, yes.
So
he's
Democrats?
he's not my hometown. He's where my company
Greenland,
is.
where your business is.
Yep.
So I guess for people who are looking at this and saying, gosh, she supports a lot of Democrats over Republicans, why is that?
I don't support a lot of Democrats over Republicans. I have supported, as I said, over $50,000 in the last 5 years to House New Hampshire Republicans, and I think the total of all of that to Democrats was $2,000. So it's not a big number when you look at the big picture.
Let's wrap up with this recent Supreme Court decision in Trump v. United States. Do you agree with this idea that the president now, as the Supreme Court justices and the majority have ruled, has this tremendous leeway, at least what they consider under the Constitution, in executive power? Do you agree with that?
I do believe that they have to have some leeway and some, I've just lost the word, but yes, they do, because they have to be able to do their job. And I think it's similar to immunity for the police, because in a split second, you have to make a decision. And you can't, qualified immunity is so important because you can't second guess. And when it's life or death, police need to know that that's there. I think with with the president, it's the same. We need to be able to give them some leeway to make some really difficult decisions and not hold them accountable.
But it's not even qualified in this case. So,
No, right.
say if a next Trump administration, if he wants to greatly expand executive power, are you on board with that?
To have to go through the courts. It have to go through the Congress. Yeah, it would have to go through the Congress.
All right, Holly Navaletsky, thanks for joining us on
Thank
Close Up.
you.
We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Again, those interviews were recorded prior to the apparent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. We thank you for watching Close Up.